G'day, Agent Har here. In this video, I want to address a comment to my channel that I think a lot of people in many different relationship types and ways may be struggling with this question in your own life. Whether you know somebody with BPD in the community, whether that person with BPD is a partner of yours right now, an adult child, a family member, any relationship type whatsoever. I think this comment is really germane to this. So, the commenter, sorry, I can't find my glasses yet, so I'm still having, The commenter asks on my video, Borderline Splitting into Valuation, if everyone else has left the BPD person and we decide to leave them, who will help them? Especially if they don't know they have a problem. I'm in this situation, except I don't know how to help them. I haven't figured out how to even show them they have a disorder. I'm a Christian who has received little or nothing from his relationship. I have had this with his BPD person for over a year, whom I met on the streets while sharing the gospel. I am not concerned about suffering for her. I get grace and power from God to let it change me. Won't say it doesn't affect or hurt me tremendously, but I get healed and continue on. Jesus told us to deny ourselves and pick up our cross. If I was this BPD person, it's what I'd hope one would do for me. I know this is not for everyone, so I completely understand and agree with all you said. I'm just trying to figure out what to do to help her if possible. She is about 60 and has this in a very severe form, along with paranoid personality disorder, and that is what this person says is their diagnosis. So whether that's official or roughly, fair enough. Though I trust in it, as she has all the symptoms in extreme degrees. If she has had it this long and not recognized it, what will change without one to advocate for her? I'm willing to suffer for her. And then great videos, and the person said they're learning a lot. This is really compelling because when one's faith and belief, whether it's Christianity or any other faith or even spiritual-based belief of, a no-faith type perspective, this is where a lot of people get tripped up, stuck, and confused. And so I'm going to start with, so everyone else has left the BPD person. And if we decide to leave them, who will help them? This is a dilemma for everybody with somebody with BPD in their life, despite relationship type or proximity to them. And the bottom line is that some people with BPD, depending, unlike the person that this commenter is describing, however, many people with BPD, upon being left to their own devices for reasons that people need to take care of themselves, many people with BPD may well realize, or have an opportunity to realize more, that there's something they really do need to change, that there's something wrong in their life, that people keep going away. But they might not realize much more about themselves in that way. And so while there are people that realize things and seek help to varying different degrees, and full recovery from BPD is a really difficult thing that I'm not saying I'm the only one who has recovered fully from BPD, but it would be probably a very small percentage still of all people diagnosed with it, and especially today where it's morphing and things are changing, and a lot of what people with BPD and those around them are going through today, it wasn't the same even 10 or 15 years ago, let alone 30 plus years ago when I recovered fully. So this idea of if you leave the person with BPD alone, who's going to help them? It's the deepest of dilemmas because you can't help them. You can't make them want to change. You can't rescue, etc. So the answer to that question is really this, okay? And I mean this with all empathy and compassion because it's very tragic. The person with BPD has to want to get some kind of help at some point and find their way to that responsibility. And does that mean that everybody with BPD, and as this commenter said, perhaps somebody with BPD and paranoid personality who's 60 years old, does that mean that people like that are going to be able to find their own way? Probably not. Does that mean if this person is willing, even though this person is willing to hurt for her, which is a very, I don't know, it's not the kind of Christianity I believe in, because I think we are called to do many things as Christians. But I'm not a fundamentalist Christian. I'm not suggesting the commenter is. But I just believe that, you know, it's sort of like that saying, what would Jesus do in a moment? Well, then we as human beings can, within reason, try to do what we think Jesus would want us to most do. But I think we have to equally remember that we aren't Jesus, and that we can't perform miracles, and that we can't change people that don't want to change. And I can't speak for God or for Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior as well. But I can't speak for that. I would just say that my interpretation of turn the other cheek, etc., is not that one is supposed to lay themselves aside bare to suffer, to give to another in that way. And so that's just my interpretation. Everybody has their own. Because if you do that, then how are you going to take care of yourself and whether or not this person could be helped? Though, unfortunately, it doesn't really sound very probable. And so, and you also, the commenter also said, they don't know that they have a problem. Well, herein lies a humongous roadblock. Is somebody by the age of 60 living all these years of life with these issues, challenges, problems, and what that brings to that person's experience in life, their perceptions now, their lens, their distorted view likely of a lot of things in people, lack of trust and lack of self? I don't think, tragically, and the person said they're very severely impacted. Well, tragically, there are a lot of people who don't get to change. They don't get to help. And actually, I don't know all the circumstances of this commenter, but it had a few experiences in my life too, meeting people. And when I was working for a church, and without going into all of that, there are times when you put forth your best efforts. You put forth maybe even more than you thought you could ever try to give. And you realize then the other quote in the Bible that it sounds very brutal, but quote, don't cast your pearls before swine, unquote. Now I want to just say, I don't think that means that literally in the sense of, maybe it was in a parable sense, but not saying that this woman who is so troubled and challenged with you know, paranoid personality and borderline personality and almost around 60 years old, not saying she's swine. That's not what I'm saying at all. But if we cast our pearls before those we can't help, you know, that's something the Bible also warns us about, because we can't help people who don't want our help. And what's the ultimate of that reality, of that, of that, is the fact that I believe that God can't even help those who don't want help. Now, somebody who's really encumbered and couldn't make that choice for themselves, in this case, in a Christian perspective, to turn to God, sure, I think that God would probably be looking out for that person in that sense. But, you know, I just really believe strongly in God who helps those who help themselves. And this is just a tragic situation. And there are so many of them. For this person with this woman that he's caring about and wanting to try to get into help, but she doesn't even know she has a problem. And she's been living like this for 60 years. And that's tragic too. But I would just say there isn't anything you can do. And that it's not unchristian to know that. And that it's not unchristian to let that go. Because we can't perform miracles. We're mere humans. We can think, what would Jesus do? And you've probably given a lot of effort to this person already. And you do as much as you can do. but then we're limited by our own humanity. And so to the point that I haven't figured out how to even show them they have a disorder. So you've been sharing the gospel with them, which is really great, and that's, but you haven't been able to show them that they have this disorder, or, they're not able to, borderline personality really inhibits awareness in people that are untreated, but paranoid personality disorder does even more so. And you put those two things together, and/or this person may have other challenges, it's so formidable as to whether, they can have, because really I'm referring to the impediments of self-awareness and awareness in personality disorders, which is a clinically sound principle of understanding. Some people are beyond their reach. I think it's really admirable that you want to help so much. And then when you said you're not concerned about suffering for her, I get grace and power from God to let it change me. Okay, yes, and I hear you, and I understand that. But guess what? As God gives you the power and the grace, as a believer of Jesus Christ, and I mean, I'm not limiting this to the narrative of Christianity. For other people, insert whatever you would, right? Or not. But as God does give you that power, to the commenter, and that empowerment, and that you can withstand many things in the grace of God, I hear you, I understand that. Maybe some teeny way I experience that myself, but maybe not as much as you do. But as God gives that to you, you're still rendered helpless in the face of this person who has impediments to their awareness and self-awareness, not only by each and comorbidly both personality disorders, that over the lifetime to the age of 60 would be so entrenched now that really there's probably no way to reach this person. So although you're ready to give and you are empowered by God and you receive the grace, then I guess what you have to ask yourself is, not that this lady isn't really important, every person is really important, but if you're throwing your pearls before, as the Bible says, but I won't use that word, then perhaps you might search your heart to find out if God has other intentions for you to serve those that you can actually reach. It's not easy to say. It won't be easy to hear. It's just a suggestion. And you met her on the streets, so I take it she's probably been on the streets for quite a while. And then let me see what else I just wanted to reference here. Yes, if you were this BPD person, you would want somebody to help you. Fair enough. And very understandable. And yet, one of the things I just know about BPD, let alone when somebody also has paranoid personality disorder, has been living on the streets maybe for a long time, don't know. We can't change other people. Whether we're well-intentioned with the grace of God and that mission and purpose, we just still can't push anybody anywhere. We can't pull anybody anywhere. That's where our ability ends and where it really needs to be left in God's hands. And then you said, oh yes, Jesus told us to deny ourselves and pick up the cross. Yes. But again, my interpretation of that would be more about deny ourselves in terms of giving our lives to Jesus Christ in the Christian tradition and serving God as we feel called to serve God. That doesn't mean to deny oneself and pick up a cross there's going to be you casting your pearls before a person that you really can't help, that you really can't get to change. And yeah, there's nothing more I can really say about that. It's just really, really tragic and difficult beyond belief, I'm sure, for the commenter. And then you said, I know this is not for everyone, so I completely understand and agree with what you said. I'm just trying to figure out what to do to help her if possible. Well, and here's the thing I'm going to say to this commenter, and it's different in all situations and relationships, but dear commenter, there isn't anything you can do to help. Not even with the grace and the glory and the power of God. It's out of your hands. It's out of your control. And it is in the service that you are in while you're in this dilemma. But I would ask you to think strongly, think a lot about casting your pearls before. So in other words, just a situation and a person tragically that you can't help, that you can't, get them to see the light or get them to have the awareness they need to want to change and get help. Sometimes, in the service of whatever way we're serving God or people with other spiritual or other faith beliefs, in whatever way we're called to service and in whatever way we're serving, sometimes we just have to know that there isn't anything else we can do. And that's a painful place to be. And then you said if she's had it this long and not recognized it, what will change without one to advocate for her? Either way, nothing. Pains me to say it. I really feel that when I say that. And I feel for you and I feel for the woman that you're trying to help. There are some people who are beyond our reach. And then they are literally in God's hands in this life in a way that I believe that I don't understand that God would be looking out for this person or that this person is able to keep surviving however they are. But that last part when you said, what will change without one to advocate for her? I hear you, and I would ask you, what would change if you advocated for her for the rest of her life? Because so tragically and sadly, in the reality of borderline personality for so many people, especially of that age, who don't know, don't have any awareness, never got diagnosed, haven't sought treatment. I just need to reference your last... Oh yes, what will change her without someone advocating for her? Nothing at this point in your life, probably. And all you're advocating for her is unlikely to prove, to be helping her to change either. So I'm sorry that the message is so not hopeful. But I think even someone in the service of God, in a Christian perspective, people are in service in many different ways, in spiritual ways. There are limits to what we can do as human beings. And each person has their own free will, their own determinism to a degree, still in this world, but, and hers is impeded and impacted. And she doesn't have the self-awareness necessary to let anyone help her or to create that kind of change, no matter how hard you advocate for her. So that's really hard, really sad, and really tragic. And so I would say to you that you need to really rethink your obvious dedication, and that perhaps, I would say to you as a Christian, perhaps God wants your service with others that you can reach. As difficult as that is to say, and as difficult as that may be for someone to hear. And then if this person with BPD, like not this person, but a person in your life with BPD, especially if they have comorbid other personality disorders or co-occurring other disorders even, and if psych meds are in the picture as well, all of this really impedes awareness. There is real impediment to self-awareness in all different ways and shapes and forms within personality disorders. This has been studied, and this I believe to be true, unlike some of the pseudoscience of psychiatry. So if it's your adult child with BPD, if it's a sibling, if it's a parent, if they're not aware, they don't want treatment, they don't think there's a problem, and especially when they're older, but really at any stage of life, the best one can do, depending on the relationship type, right? But you need to take care of yourself and set them free to their own consequences. And some of those consequences can be utterly devastating, especially like if you're the mother of an adult child. And hey, don't get mad at me here, because lots of parents are never going to make this choice. I understand that. Some, though, find that they have to. Marriages get broken apart and families get broken apart when there's one adult child with BPD who is treatment resistant and or addicted to substances, and that's a revolving door, but they just will not get help, and they destroy your family, and they shatter your hearts. And this is really heavy duty stuff. It's so serious. And parents with an adult child with BPD will try and go, and some for the rest of their lives will try, and understand that. And then many parents have to realize, and moms, in the 25% of an adult child with BPD, they have to realize that maybe they have other children still to raise, but they deserve a life too. Really tough choices. So for anybody that is in any relationship type, any circumstance that a person with BPD or comorbid with another personality disorder is in, especially if they're older, if they've never sought treatment, if they don't know or think there's a problem, then you have to radically accept that. And that means radically accepting the limitation of one's ability to help even an adult child. You can still love that adult child, but all you're helping is enabling them to stay the same. And for the commenter, blessings to you for your service and for your care. But there are others out there who need you. And it's not that this woman should be sacrificed or left, but these are the tough choices in life. And I'm not going to say I know it to the extent of this person or other people, like with an adult child with BPD. I know it as the adult child of a BPD, NPD, and I had a dark triad father. But I know it even in the work that I do here, and not only what I share on YouTube and what all that entails and what kind of comes back at you sometimes and the challenges, and also working with clients. There's always limitation on what we can do. And even in the service of God, and when I work with clients, no, I'm not talking as a Christian unless they're Christian also. But even in the service of God as a Christian, there are limitations to what we can do. And we need to really heed that. And I think thinking like, what would Jesus do? And then if you've given it your best shot. We have to let go. We have to let go and let God, and whatever that means in a person's life with BPD, or this woman and BPD with paranoid personality disorder, whatever that means in people's lives, unfortunately, we don't have the power to change that. So I hope this is helpful to someone. And, if you're an ex of someone with BPD, though hopefully the person isn't in the same dire situation as the commenter, the person that he wants to help, it's really important to know that what I'm talking about on this channel from a really deep knowledge base, and one you can count on and trust, and a lot of experience, lived and professional. Sometimes we have to let go. And then like this lady who's maybe been living on the streets for a long time will continue to survive the way she has. And if it's an adult child or someone you really care about, or if it's your ex, that compelling want to tell them they have BPD, or you think they do, that compelling want you have to get them help, etc. It's not going to save your relationship, number one. And number two, it might not even change a relationship with an adult child. And thirdly, we simply can't change anybody but ourselves. And at the end of the day, in really painful situations with somebody with BPD, severely impacted or comorbid with co-occurring disorders or personality disorders, it's really in God's hands in that regard. And there isn't anything we can do. And we need to know, so hard, because I know this a little bit from my own experience in the work I do. It's so hard sometimes when you know you can't help somebody. Because that's the other side of the work I do. I can help most clients. And in 30 years, I've had to probably terminate 5 clients for being so abusive. And maybe the odd other one, other ones fell out of the process or we weren't a good fit. But you can't help people beyond them joining in the process to help themselves. And this is what makes BPD tragic. No matter how many people have been hurt by people with BPD, and I'm not defending their behavior, it's tragic in so many cases. It really, really is. Especially with comorbidity, from something with cluster A or cluster C. Not necessarily just BPD, NPD, comorbidity. If they're not aware that they have a problem, telling them all day long isn't going to change that. And how much is it that we're supposed to sacrifice or throw the pearls before someone who can't accept the pearls? So anyways, take care.